Judge Berkow. I retired recently after 20 years on the family law bench, and I teach law here at Golden Gate. Well, I teach at Golden Gate, but we are not at Golden Gate, at JFK Law School. We're here today because the court has worked out a program with the school and with the Contra Costa Bar Association to help people who are representing themselves on both sides. This is called the double ProPer settlement conference, where there are no lawyers other than those of us who are lawyers or aspiring to be lawyers in the room, okay? Now, why do we want to help you? As a judge, I did 20 years of people who were not prepared to go the next step when they got to court. Most often, their papers weren't in order. Often, their expectations were not in order, and they didn't have a good handle on what was going on, what was going to happen next, and how to prepare, okay? So when we conceived this workshop, it was to give all of you who are representing yourself a chance to be better prepared, so when you go to court, you are likely to be able to either settle your case entirely or at least let them know what you've settled and what is disputed. So we're here to help you get all of that in order, okay? The court directed you all to come because you have a judicial settlement conference date coming up, okay? Our job tonight is to get rid of all of those messy family law emotions. Now, we're talking about children, we're talking about money, we're talking about property, and these are pretty crazy-making things. Anybody who goes through this process is not happy, Jim. I have yet, in 20 years and about 20,000 cases, to me, a happy couple in divorce court. It's a crazy-making experience. Our job is to try to get you to focus on the business of it, to try to set those emotions as best you can aside, learn about the law, and learn about the business of going forward. Does that sound like a plan? Yes? Okay. We got to do a couple things. I'm going to draw your attention here to the board. Told you who I was. That's me. We have, these two folks aren't here yet. We have Salam Gizahagen. Yes? I always get her last name wrong, so she is very forgiving of me. Salam is recently admitted practicing attorney, and we have three of my law students here tonight. We have Buzz, we have John, and we have Kathy. And they are sitting between you for a good reason. They're going to keep the peace, and they're going to keep you focused on the business of getting divorced. Now, I will tell you, ladies and gentlemen, in every divorce, there is usually somebody who wants it to happen, and happen as quickly as possible, and there is somebody who is not so happy about it happening and would like to slow the whole thing down or forget all about it. That's the nature of divorce, okay? So keep that in mind. We are here to try to get you both at the same time and place so you can be smart about your case, how you can get it done quickly, how you can get it done without missing another week of work, right? And finish and move on with your life. Now, your old expression takes two to what? Takes two to?
Tango.
Tango. This is interactive. I want you to speak right up, okay? Oh, and by the way, there are no dumb questions, okay? We ask questions because we're smart. We ask because we recognize there's something we don't understand, okay? So, no dumb questions and a great answer. 2 to tango. 2 to tango means marriage is not going to work if one of the two people are not willing to make it work. That's just how it is. We are not church. We are not here to say who's right and who's wrong. That's irrelevant, okay? We are here to recognize the legal issues that went into the marriage and how we're going to dissolve that marriage legally, all right? Okay, how do we do that? We do this, and I keep coming back to this. You see how big I made this letter? For a reason. What do you think that stands for? Any guesses? All right, law students.
Evidence.
Evidence, evidence, evidence. Unlike court television, courts of law in the real world operate on evidence. Evidence is the documentation that you're going to need to prove what you're saying is true. Now, here's a tip from an old judge for you appearing in court. The one who's got their evidence in order is usually going to prevail. One side is usually much better at getting their evidence together than the other. You're here tonight to help you focus on how to get that evidence together, because the court is not going to find that you are right in what you say if it's just he said, she said. He said, she said. We call it the he said, she said version of the universe, and I'm here to tell you it is not very persuasive. What does a judge need in order to find that what you're saying is true? Come on, everybody. Evidence. All right, next question. Whose job is it to bring that evidence to court? Any idea? Whose? All of you. Is it the judge's job? No. Is it the law student's job? No. Is it the other side's job? If you make it the other side's job, you may as well throw in your hat and go home, because they're going to prevail. It's up to you, nobody else but you, to get that evidence together. And we're going to tell you how to do that tonight. Now, some people are probably a little farther along than others. We're going to make some general observations about the process, and then I'm going to let the law students go through your paperwork with you. And our first order of business is going to try to get a good handle on what things you agree to and what things you do not agree to. Okay? We don't want yet to try to get you to agree to anything. We'll get there later. Okay? We're first trying to figure out what's disputed and what's agreed. Now, I had a young lady come into the last workshop. We do these once a month, and she said, "We don't agree on anything." I said, "Do I have to be here?" And I said, "Yes, you sit down." They agreed on everything by the end of the night. You will be surprised at what you can actually agree to. And usually it's the evidence that you can agree to. Why? Because a bank account statement is kind of hard to argue with. A pay stub is kind of hard to argue with, right? The number of children you have and their ages, kind of hard to argue with. Previous court orders that say X, Y, Z, kind of hard to argue with. The evidence is what we're going to determine you either have or you don't have for the disputed stuff, and to prove up what you believe to be true. Any questions about that? Okay, now, a couple more definitions and then we'll get started on the forms that I want you to look at. I put them up here. I want you to know this when I use these terms. The first one is DOM. There's two important dates here, DOM and DOS. Any clues? Anybody have a guess here? DOM is date of marriage. Very good. All of you right now on a piece of paper, and we have plenty of paper for those who need paper and pens. I hope you all came prepared. Do you need paper and pens? Yeah, okay. Let's have a law student. Are you okay to leave it there? If you're good. If they're all in this box, so just make sure everybody's got paper and pen. And the law students probably all need that yellow marker. Okay, good. So I want, as soon as you get your paper, I want you to all write down the date you got married. Okay? What's this? DOS. What do you think that is? Date of separation. Why is that important? Any idea? Here's why. That's right. And we're going to go right into this next, and he's got it, hit the nail on the head. SP means your separate property. What does separate property mean? It belongs to you. It does not have a community interest in it. It doesn't belong to both of you. It belongs to one. Okay? Separate property, I put it over here before we got to date of marriage, because many people had property before they got married, right? Yep. Okay, that's their separate property. SP, separate property. Okay, now, in between date of marriage and date of separation is this big thing called CP, which stands for community property. What does that mean?
It's what you accrued when you were married.
Right. So, in between And write it down, guys. Write down your date of marriage, write down your date of separation, so you have those dates in your head, okay? In between the time that you got married and you got separated, and listen up carefully, this is a very key point here, in between those two dates, all the assets that came into the marriage, all the money, all the property, all the cars, all the jewelry, all the everything, are generally community. After separation, here we go back again to what? Separate property, okay? So let's just take a for instance. Let's say that, let me just get your names, and if you don't mind, folks, unless anybody minds, I'm going to use first names so I don't murder your last names, okay? All right. All right, Richard, hurry up, you're late, right over here. Will you be able to help them? Okay. So, you got your date of marriage down, you got your date of separation down, all right? Let's give a for instance. Where's Valerie and Rick? Okay, Valerie and Rick. Are you both working currently?
I am working.
Okay. And you work how, Rick? What's your job?
I'm a marketing person for a medical device company.
Okay. So your wages before you got married belong to who?
Before we got married,
Belong to you. Your wages between the time that you got married and you got separated belong to who?
The family.
Okay? You get 50%, you get 50%. That's what community means. After you separate, who do your wages belong to? They
That's
belong to
debatable right now.
Well, you have debts that you have to pay, but now your wages again belong to you. Valerie, the same thing would be true for you if you had been working at any point during that period. All right? Let's talk about debt. I'm going to pick on you because I have your names in my head. Okay, Rick and Valerie. You may not have done this. We're just pretending, okay? All right, before they got married, Rick had a flashy motorcycle that he paid $10,000 for, okay? Whose property is that? Rick's. Rick's separate property, maybe. Maybe he took out a loan to buy that flashy $10,000 motorcycle. And he's paying it off. He meets Valerie, they get married, and guess what's getting paid during the period of the marriage? Payments on that loan. Well then, we're getting a little complicated, right? Some of those payments, that community property income or wherever the money came from that went to pay for the motorcycle, belonged to the community. So that motorcycle now has a chunk of community interest in it. All the property that you used to pay it down together. So it's a two-way street. The assets come in and the debt comes in. And we have to figure out whether the assets and the debt are separate or community. And the law students are going to help you with that. Any questions about that? That's really basic, but really important. Okay? Everybody on the same page? Okay, now, we are here tonight to do a couple things. You have in front of you a packet of colored paper. Everybody get that out. Do not mess with the order. We're going to go through this quickly, and I want to show you what you have here. The very first top sheet is the disclosure statement, which you now, all of you need to sign. What this says is Judge Berkow is not your lawyer, okay? Salam is not your lawyer. Buzz, Dawn, and Kathy, who will be lawyers in the not-too-distant future, are not your lawyers either. Nobody is here to give you legal advice. We are here to give you information, and you need to be real clear on that. So let's just have Salam, if you will go around and collect them so we can make sure we have one for everybody. Any questions about this? Okay. Yeah, Dawn.
For the location, do they just put?
Just put JFK. Pleasant Hill. Okay, so just print your name, sign your name. For location, put JFK Pleasant Hill. Today's date is the
8th,
It's the 8th. You're right. Thank you. And how did you hear about this program? Well, the court told you to come visit us, yes? Okay, so you can put that in there. All right, now, I'm going to keep talking, so I need you to listen while you're doing that as well. The next piece of paper in your packet is sort of bone ivory colored. Everybody got this? Okay? This is what the law students and Salam, for the two of you, are going to work on tonight. This is the most important document we're going to do. It is a list of all of your issues in terms of what you agree on and what you don't agree on. You are going to get copies of this document, each of you, and we are going to give copies of the document to the court, so that whoever is helping you when you go to your judicial settlement conference, you're going to show them this piece of paper, so they will not be lost in the woods. They will know what you agree on and what you disagree on, and they will be able to jump right in and start from there. You look a little confused. Are you with me? Okay, good. All right, now the law students are going to be in charge of this document. Nobody else is to write on it. They will ask you questions about each of it, and we'll identify that. And remember, students, we're going to be very specific when we get to the elements of the support, what's agreed, what's not in terms of income, timeshare, all of those things. Okay, third document. The second most important document is also green. It says checklist.
No.
Okay, they may be a little out of order. You should have a second green document. Look in your pack. Okay, it's the second green one. Everybody have it? It's titled Contra Costa Bar Association Family Law Section, Checklist of Items to Bring to Court. Everybody with me? Okay, this is key. The law students are also going to go over this with you, and you are going to have a list of things you need to bring with you to court. And bring it. You do not just bring it here tonight. You bring it each and every time you go to court, so you've got what you need to go forward, even if you have to get a little wheelie cart to bring it with you, okay? Now, law students, help me remember that we have to copy for the settlement attorney in court both your issue list and their homework. This is your homework, folks. Now, many of you may have already done this. Some of you have not. The law students are going to go through it, make sure you have everything here. And the settlement attorney is going to get that ahead of time. All right, next document in our packet.
Question,
Yes?
Does the court accept electronic documents?
No. I wish they did,
Wow.
but they do not. Why? Because the court is broke. The court has no money. To institute a system for electronic filing is something all of us want, but none of us can afford. Maybe in some perfect world that will happen. Not here, not now.
How much money is being spent on engine? I'm sorry.
Okay. See, this is something that I could spend 2 hours talking to you about, believe me. And it's just a function of budget problems, because we're very short-sighted. We don't look to the long term in terms of savings. One day, there will be electronic filing, but not for you all, not here, not now, okay? Okay, so let's move on. The next thing I want to point out to you is something called a property declaration. Now we're getting into the world of judicial council forms. Okay, it's a white form. At the very bottom, it says property declaration. Everybody see that? All right, take a look at the top of this, folks. You may have already filled one of these out, or you may have filled out another similar form called Schedule of Assets and Debts, and the law students are going to help you sort that out. What we need you to do tonight is we're going to use this one form that I've given you as your worksheet. It is going to include all the separate property and all the community property. However, when you go to court, you're going to need to do a separate property declaration for separate and a separate property declaration for community. And you can see there are boxes that you can check at the top of the form that say that, okay? Now, this is the form that is going to help trigger your memory about each and every item of property that's at issue, remember, between these two crucial dates, between date of marriage and date of separation. Now, there may also be some separate property. Let's say that Rick's motorcycle is over here in the separate property, and he didn't have to take a loan. He paid for it. That's going to go on his separate property. But if he did have to take out that loan and pay for it, it's gonna go on the community property loan, okay? The law students are gonna help you figure out which is which.
Sorry, one more question.
Yeah.
You said, community property that is at issue. Is that the only thing that we put on there?
No,
The issues?
no. Any and all.
Even if we've already agreed
If
upon
you
property?
have agreed on dividing some, you just note that it's been agreed, okay? And Buzz will make sure he notes all those agreements in his list, okay? That's good to hear that you have reached some agreements, and you may be able to reach some agreements tonight. All right, property declaration helps you be very specific, and the thing here, we're back to my E word, which means, everybody, evidence, evidence. How do we claim, how do we establish whether that motorcycle is separate or community? What do we need? What kind of evidence do we need? We need a bill of sale, yeah? It's got a date on it, doesn't it? Yeah. If you borrowed money for it, we've got a loan application, right? We've got a title that says something. All of these documents are evidence, and you need to get them in order for each item that you're talking about. I'm gonna come to you in just 1 minute, and you're gonna list out until you fall asleep each and every piece of property, and then the other side of the equation is each and every debt. Each and every debt. Now that can be a school loan, it can be a credit card bill, it can be a mortgage, it could be anything. But again, you're going to need to prove it up with evidence. The latest account statement on all of those things, okay? An asset is a checking account, hopefully with some money in it. Maybe a savings account, maybe an IRA. That's the good news, okay? The credit card bill that says you owe $6,000 is not the good news, but that has to go on here too on the debt side. Everybody clear about that? Okay, and we're going to go over these with you. Next, a packet in your packet, next document here I want you to look at is your income and expense declaration. You can always tell the title, folks, by at the middle of the bottom of the page there. Income and expense declaration, another white form. Okay, everybody have that? Matthew, you find it there?
Yep.
Okay, good. Now, the law requires that you have a recent one of these when you go to court. You may have already filled one of these out. How many of you think you have? Okay, you should have if you're this far in the process. But you're going to have to update it and make sure it's current. That means something may have happened. Maybe you have a different job. Maybe you have a raise. Maybe you had a cut. Something may have happened to change your situation. If absolutely nothing happened to change from when you did it, say 3 months ago, you must then say, under penalty of perjury at the bottom, it's exactly the same as it was when I filed this before. There are no changes, and that's just fine. However, I think you will find these things change all the time. And the law students are going to go over that with you to make sure whatever you did previously is either still current or not current. And on your little checklist will be things like your 3 most recent pay stubs. Why do we need your 3 most recent pay stubs? You may have gotten a raise. You may have gotten a cut, right? It's to prove up with evidence that what you say is true. Okay? All right. The other thing, the other side of the income statement is your expense statement. How much you're paying for your housing. How much you're paying for your food. How much you're paying for your utilities. These are the items that start appearing on item 13 and forward. And we don't need to go over it in too much detail now. The students are going to do that when they meet with you. All right, we're almost there. Stay with me here. One more judicial counsel form I want you to look at says pension benefits attachment to judgment. Everybody see this? Okay? A pension is kind of becoming like a dinosaur. Not a lot of people have pensions these days. How many people have a pension here? Okay, good. Rashida, that's good that you have one. And you have one too, Khalid? Good. All right. That is something we're going to have to divide up depending on how many working years were between date of marriage and date of separation. We have a little time rule formula that we're going to use to figure out what's community and what's not. And we're not going to do that here tonight because what you need is called a quadro, Qualified Domestic Relations Order. And we're going to give you a referral in your checklist to Moon and Schwartz, who do these quadros for people. And you're gonna have that to give to the court before the court's gonna be able to divide up those pensions.
Say what that is again.
Yeah, sorry. Qualified domestic retirement order, qualified domestic retirement order, okay? Quadro's fine, but she didn't.
Okay.
And we have, the students will go over that with you. But what this document is here, I'll get to you in just one sec. What this document does, and what you have to make sure you do if you have a pension, is make sure that this gets attached to your final judgment. Why? Because this is our Band-Aid. This protects the two of the people who've got them until such time as they can go over to Mr. Moon or Mr. Schwartz or whoever and get a quadro done. It usually takes a while and some money, okay? This will protect you in the meantime. It basically says, look, here's the pension, we're gonna go get the quadro, and I'm holding on to my right to claim my community share, Rashida in Khalil's and Khalil's in Rashida's. So you have to make sure you put this on your judgment. Did you have a question about this?
I do. First of all, apologize for running late.
Mhm.
You might have covered this, so I want to run this up. Pension.
Mhm.
Your quadro.
Mhm.
You have DOM.
Right.
Okay. Pension from before date of marriage.
Mhm. What do you think?
I need E evidence.
You need E, but it is separate property.
Separate property. It was well before.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not
Now,
even on the table then.
That's right. Now, that formula that is used in the quadro, and the reason they're a little more expensive and take a little more time to do, has to sort out how many years were before marriage, how many years were during marriage,
Yeah, there was-
and how many
It was
after.
done, shut,
Well,
locked
and it
before.
could be that it's pretty straightforward, which
Pretty
is great. Believe me, they're not often so straightforward. So that's good. But we use the time rule because, I don't want to get too far into it because I'm not sure how many have pensions. But Gina is going to be entitled to half of pension benefits that were accrued during the marriage. Not
Understood.
before, not after, but during. And so it's 50% of whatever that accrual is between. There's a formula that we use to do that. Okay, let's move on. Let's just try to get through the packet here and get the law students to work on your details. Okay, next one is a pretty pink sheet, child support. How many of you have kids? Raise your hand. Okay? So, child support in California is an algebraic formula. I'm here to tell you that most of us go to law to avoid algebra, all right? We use a computer program called DissoMaster. Maybe some of you are familiar with it. People in my courtroom used to call it Disco Master. But anyway, that is how we calculate your child support. And some of the inputs that go into that calculation may be agreed, some may be disputed. And the law students are going to go over those details with you so the person doing your settlement knows what's what. Okay? All right, the next sheet is permanent spousal support. This is the yellow one, permanent spousal support. Okay? This is a complicated situation that we will put aside and see if we can figure out everything else first. Spousal support depends on about 20 different factors that my law students still are learning that the court is going to have to find to determine what's the appropriate amount. I'm just going to summarize it in a nutshell and then give you this to take home if this is an issue for you. We're looking at your relative financial situation. We're looking at the downtime in the marriage. Did somebody keep home and hearth going and take care of the kids while the other one was out working and getting advancements and going to school? Well, that was of value to the other one, right? We're going to take that into consideration. We're going to take into consideration what your needs are. Does somebody have a need to go back and refresh their computer skills? Has somebody been out of the workforce for a long time and is not very employable right now? Has somebody been unemployed for a long time and have trouble finding work? All of those things are going to fit into this, and we'll go through them for you if they apply. We're also going to ask you the most embarrassing question as far as I'm concerned, which is how old are you? That's a factor. Your health is another factor. The tax consequences of how we're dividing up everything else and your spousal support is a factor. The payor gets taxed deduction for the money that he or she is paying in support, and the payee, the one receiving the spousal support, doesn't get a deduction, it's counted as income. That has a tax effect that has to be taken into consideration. So, all right, one more sheet and we're almost there. Purple. This is a little more detailed than what I've just given you about separate and community property and how we define them, okay? It's the purple sheet. All right, now, that's your packet, and now we're going to have the students start the issue list with you. And do we have all the disclosure statements collected?
Yes.
Okay. So everybody get this out. Okay? And do this, law students, remember, in conjunction with the property declaration that you're filling out at the same time. All right, and I'm going to wander around and help as we go, and we'll have somebody come help you separately.